I want to talk about the growing momentum around the new EPBD, and as I said, the opportunities that it provides. But before that, a few words about what we are. As Peter already introduced, I'm the managing director of eu.bac. We represent a lot of the organizations, a lot of the companies that are present here in this hall today that really manufacture the smart solutions for our homes now and for the future to come. But we are not just a business, or our companies are not just a business, and we don't just represent their business interests, but we always strive for a future where everyone thrives in smart, decarbonized, and efficient built environments. And this is not just a dream. We believe it's a necessity if we want to achieve some of the goals that Sylvia outlined coming from Europe's climate, energy security, and resilience goals. So in the upcoming session, together with some other colleagues, we'll explore what are the market conditions to achieve this vision, and also if there's any major roadblocks in the way, and how we as an industry can address these, together, of course, with our colleagues from the member states and the institutions at the European level. Let's talk a little bit about the specific requirements and the specific deadlines that we can look forward to. And I just lost my notes, so I'll try to wing this a little bit. So we already had a deadline for our BACS requirements at the end of last year. I hope you have all communicated to your partners, to your clients, to anybody who is buying the smart building solutions, of how to comply with these requirements that were introduced and applied from the end of last year. But looking forward, we have a few more important deadlines. So in 2026, the new directive that was adopted last year, that Sylvia introduced, it will have to be transposed at the national level, meaning that member states' civil servants now are really busy trying to understand what the Commission is asking. We'll rely also on their guidelines and also inputs from the industry on how these provisions can be implemented practically. What do they actually mean in the building? Because the words in the directive are, a little bit vague always, to allow for some flexibility. But it's up to us as an industry, both at the European level but also the national level, to explain what this means in practice. So this is an important point. The deadline is upcoming. But together with this deadline, we already have some provisions that will automatically apply. And I think really relevant for us, what Sylvia mentioned, is the upcoming indoor environmental quality monitoring in large non-residential buildings. So these will come together with the existing BACS capabilities, or building automation control system capabilities that are already there. So in large buildings, they will apply from 2026, these monitoring requirements, and then together with the building automation control system deadline reducing to 70, or scope reducing to 70 kilowatts, they will also apply from 2030 in smaller non-residential buildings. Beyond this, we also have some new smart building provisions in residential buildings, which we won't explore in detail today, but they're there. Also an interesting opportunity, not only in the non-residential, but also in the residential sector. And then we have something that I think in Europe we're excited for, is the smart readiness indicator that will create sort of a pull effect, we hope, for all the smart technologies represented here. So as you might know, you might be familiar already with the energy performance certificates, which give you guidance on how efficient your building is and how much energy it consumes. Also provides you with some ideas of how to improve that efficiency. Through smart readiness indicator, we hope to do something similar for the building smartness. So there will be an assessment of where the building stands now, but also it will provide concrete steps what you can do in your building to make it smarter. Currently, it's being tested in several member states. By 2027, the Commission is tasked to adopt an act to explain how it will be mandatory in large non-residential buildings. And beyond that, it's again, I think, up to us as an industry to sort of interpret this, how it will apply in the national markets. And finally, as I mentioned, end of this decade, even more non-residential buildings will be covered by these provisions. And I wanted to overlay it a little bit with the general renovation requirements that are coming, because this, I think, is the opportunity that we as an industry can provide to the market, because there's, with this EPBD, for the first time, there's concrete targets on renovating or improving generally energy efficiency, both in the non-residential and the residential sector. So we have 3 deadlines here: 2030 by the end of the decade, 2033 and 2035, where you see that 16% of the worst performing non-residential buildings need to be renovated, then 26% worst performing by 2033, and then there's a general energy efficiency improvement that is envisaged in residential sector with the 2 deadlines. So this is somewhere where I think we as an industry can come in and use these targets to talk to our clients, to talk to the national authorities. Thank you so much. To talk to the national authorities, to tell them that we are here. We can provide up to 46% energy savings, of course, depending on application and conditions apply. With that, not just improved energy efficiency, but also optimize the comfort and indoor environmental quality, provide operational savings to the building users, enable the building to be demand ready, so enable grid flexibility, so help also in our energy transition more broadly, and of course, future-proof the building so it's compliant with all the future requirements that are necessarily going to come and be ready for that. Speaking more specifically on energy efficiency, there was a study that, together with Politico di Milano, we collaborated to create last year, which looked at what would it mean if you implemented the existing building automation control system requirements on the building stock, looking at the energy performance classes at the different countries, and if you implement them, what does that mean for your energy performance class? And the study showed that if you implement these requirements on worst performing buildings, you can actually achieve a jump of 2 classes. So remember what I mentioned about the upcoming renovation and energy efficiency increase requirements for residential and non-residential. So you can take this study and say, okay, you need to improve your energy efficiency by a certain class. Here you go. These are our solutions. We can implement them now. And with a relatively easy, not a difficult intervention at your building, without any deep renovation, which is also necessary later, but maybe not immediately, you can achieve these savings that you can see here. And beyond that, of course, as I mentioned, this is not the only benefit. You improve the indoor environmental quality, you improve the operation efficiency, you provide comfort to your employees, to your residents, or whoever. So it's a great opportunity, again, to showcase what our technologies can do. What we are doing as an industry, and Peter, my colleague, already mentioned it a little bit before, we're trying to explain with a united voice what these different provisions mean. So we created a checklist through extensive work over 2 years with our building technology experts to explain what specifically each single line in the EPBD means in terms of what do you have to be able to show in your building to demonstrate to the inspector, and what the inspector needs to look at to ensure that you are compliant with these requirements. We came up with the first version of this checklist after the previous EPBD with the requirements then. The Commission endorsed it and said that, yes, indeed, if you fulfilled this checklist, you comply with these requirements, and now we have updated it, of course, to match the new requirements. It has been translated in German, French, and Spanish. It's being used by the industry, so we invite you to look at it as well. You can scan the code here and access it on our website. It's available to anybody. And what we're doing at the national level, we're also talking to the national authorities and trying to encourage them to, of course, they're not going to use, the exact same template, but do something similar, because you need to tell members something beyond the legal text on what does this mean, how do we actually comply with these requirements. And we see many member states already doing something similar. There was an attempt in Netherlands to do this as well. They didn't go quite as far as we wanted, but they also have a checklist now. We know other member states are doing something similar, so we hope that more of this can come. So the installers, the building owners, everybody knows what exactly their building has to be capable of doing. So with that said, and give me a second here. We are now ready for our panel discussion, but I want to leave you just with sort of what's next and what we will be discussing. As I said, these smart technologies, building automation and controls, is no longer an option. They are a requirement. However, the implementation matters. So it matters what member states do. It matters what the authorities ask at the national level, because we don't want a fragmented market like it is with many other areas of EU, because the more uniform the market is, the easier it is for the industry to provide these solutions and products in a packaged manner. Nevertheless, collaboration is a key, as I mentioned, between the industry stakeholders. So that's what we represent. We invite everybody who is not yet a member of eu.bac or any national association that you might have in your country to, of course, come join forces and work on this together. Also, of course, as I said, this is not just a requirement, it's a business opportunity, and that's what we'll try to discuss in the panel now. So, with that said, let's invite our speakers to the stage. Our first panelist brings a wealth of experience in energy climate policy, both at a national and at the EU level. Bruno Pedrotti, please come up. He's the Global Director for Public Affairs at Danfoss Climate Solutions, where he focuses on regulatory policy and funding topics that are shaping the future of our industry. Originally from Italy, Bruno holds 2 master's degrees, has over 17 years of international experience, having worked both at Brussels and also at a national level. So please give me a hand welcoming Bruno.
Thank you.
Our second panelist is a distinguished leader in the HVAC industry. You might know her, Marta, bringing over 3 decades of international experience in strategic marketing, innovation, product management, and business development. She serves as the General Director of AFEC, the Spanish Association of HVAC Equipment Manufacturers. So her extensive career includes leadership roles in different multinational companies. She holds a master's degree in physics and an executive MBA from the IE Business School. Marta, please welcome Marta to the stage. And finally, my colleague Peter Hug, who you already know, so not many introductions, but he's the managing director of the building automations in VDMA in Germany. Wealth of experience also working on EPBD in his previous role as the managing director of eu.bac as well. So welcome, Peter, as well, back to the stage. So,
hi again.
Thank you very much, guys, for joining. Do you have a mic, Peter? Yep. Very good. Oh. Oh. So let's open up perhaps with a show of hands. Who has engaged with the different requirements for the buildings and building automation and controls, and who has perceived it sort of as a burden? Show of hands. Difficulty to understand, perhaps. And who sees it as a business opportunity? Oh, some hands, some uncertain. But I think we have a room for discussion. So let's start with that big picture perspective. We often talk about EPBD compliance as a challenge. But Marta, perhaps if you want to start, how do you see where are the opportunities for smart building solutions like BACS and others, and what do they bring to the market?
Well, first, hello everybody. Thanks for inviting me to the panel. And I would like to also say that thanks to Sylvia, because I've met her in a few forums, and she's usually available and willing to listen to the industry and willing to support. So sorry to say, Sylvia, but use her now that you have her here, because she's a good support to the industry. So I may challenge two things to you today.
That's why we're here.
First is the word smart. I've always, well, that is more kind of a joke. I've always wondered why we call them smart buildings and smart devices. I believe we use smart not to use intelligence. So these things are a little far away from ourselves because we consider ourselves intelligent. But they are really smart, and they are going into intelligence with the BACS. And the second challenge is to turn the question around. So let's not look for the opportunities. Let's look for the cost of opportunity if we do not implement BACS systems, building automation and control systems. So Gusts have shown us some of the benefits. So imagine you miss all those benefits. Imagine you have a building which does not have proper access control. Imagine you don't have the proper energy management. Imagine you don't have real-life, just-in-time maintenance monitoring. Imagine you don't use a proper control for indoor air quality, indoor environmental quality. Imagine you don't have proper setting for the lighting. Well, that is a building which will lose a lot of money in terms of productivity, in terms of absenteeism, in terms of operation. But moreover, the cost of opportunity would go also to things like the value of your building. A renovated building without proper control systems will be not only for the energy class, but it will worth less. So the tenant value is higher. So what is the cost of opportunity when you do not do that? It's relatively high. So let's not mistake ourselves. BACS systems are there. They are mature technology and evolving. We don't need to wait for the EPBD for the opportunity, but the EPBD is bringing us a frame of regulation, of support, of incentives. So just let's use it. But again, don't fool ourselves. Don't let's fool ourselves. It is there. Technology is there. The buildings are built to be lived in. Every building is different. A solution for one building is not going to be the same as for other building, and these systems will really adapt to the use of the building every day, every hour for any kind of occupancy.
Thank you, Marta. Indeed, you are right. I think we often think about the sort of try to frame things as an opportunity, as a business opportunity, but we indeed need to talk also about what's the cost of not acting now. I think we do that, see that in many policy areas, geopolitical areas as well, where we also perhaps have been a little bit slow to diversify, to become a little bit more resilient. So I think in this area we also have to think about the cost indeed of not acting. Bruno, perhaps if you want to add on what do you see as the biggest market drivers for these solutions, compliance, energy efficiency, anything else you might?
Thanks, Gusts, and again also from my side, thanks a lot for the invitation. Well, I can only agree with what Marta said, of course. Just to add to that question, transposition, implementation of legislation may be a challenge, but we are doing that to solve much bigger challenges, right? So the climate crisis, the cost of our energy system, the cost of healthcare systems, and so on. So BACS come into this picture and can provide some solutions. Now on
you can just bring it closer.
Closer?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yep.
Now, regarding what is the biggest driver, I think must be, at least if I look at thermal BACS, so BACS to control the heating and cooling systems, it must be energy efficiency, and I think it is, with many other benefits that were mentioned before. So one could even think, so if energy efficiency is the benefit and there is a short return investment, why do we need legislation at all? And I think this comes up routinely, and it's, I think, important to stress it here, because we have market failure, like in many different markets. So it could be due to lack of information, lack of training, lack of skills, or kind of an irrational behavior of end users. It all happens, right? That's why we need policy support, mandatory requirements, but we also need support, we need communication, we need public funding in certain instances to move beyond these barriers. Another factor that causes market failure, which also I want to mention, is the split incentive issue. So the building owner may have to invest, the tenant would reap the benefit of energy efficiency, and this stops the owner sometimes from investing. So for all these reasons, we have to go a bit beyond also the thinking on return on investment, and also look at legislation and policies.
Excellent, thank you, Bruno. Indeed, there are split incentives in many areas, and that's where the legislation can indeed step in to drive the market, and that's what the Commission has been doing. Peter, in the same vein, sort of, you are very well knowledgeable of the German market. What have you seen as sort of the market uptake of these smart solutions, and is it still the business opportunity that's driving it, or do you see also that the legislation that started applying for large non-residential buildings at the end of the year is also doing something?
Yeah, for many years we thought that it's such a business opportunity, such an opportunity and a low-hanging fruit to save energy, to use building automation and controls, that we didn't understand really why it doesn't take up, why the market doesn't explode. So it's but it's a challenge, because we have some kind of asymmetric information. So if you talk to any layman, what about energy efficiency of buildings? They talk about insulation of buildings. They talk about new windows. That's the first thing that comes into mind. You know, our studies where we can prove that with building automation controls there's a large potential of 25, 30, and even more percentage of energy saving, thermal energy as well as electrical energy. Nobody really believes in it without seeing that study before, and nobody looks at the studies before. And that's one reason why the market didn't perform that well. And what Bruno said with these market failures, that we have this asymmetric information, but we also have this split incentives. And that's a big problem. We have another big split incentive when it comes to the company who's building, that's doing the construction work, and then there's another owner, and then the property changes over various stages, and that's really a problem. And so the incentives are just different. The one who is investing in a building, he wants to save a lot of money by not investing, and the one who is using the building and the one who's then operating the building, they cannot make the savings. And then the other problem is that due to the past experience, energy building automation, it sounds like autonomous driving. You have a building, it's automatic, but it doesn't work as an automatic building. Building automation means anyhow you have to use the technology day by day, and look into the technology and use the technology to make the building efficient. But you need to use the technology. It's not an autonomous building, it's building automation. And that's also some recognition that was just not right. And I think in future we will have more. We will have AI, and we will have other solutions where we make buildings more autonomous. But in the end, we really have to look at the performance of the building day by day, and that's it gives the opportunity to save a lot of, you have the potential to save the energy, but it not necessarily saves the energy if you put everything on 24/7 and the heating is on 24/7. You can do everything. You can control a building to maximize the building inefficiency, but you should use it to make it as efficient as possible. So there's a learning process, and this learning process did not really work out well. So we are very happy that now with the regulation coming from Brussels, so we kind of force people to be lucky and to be efficient and to use the buildings efficient.
Indeed. Thank you, Peter. Many good points. I think, indeed, the visibility hasn't necessarily been there. I think it's sometimes a little bit complex to understand a lot of these regulations, and there's so much coming at investors at this moment that it's sometimes also a little bit difficult to prioritize and understand what's what. And as you said, that's why we're trying to do this work as an industry together with studies, with showcases, to try to demonstrate the potential of this industry. But I think another important point, of course, is to speak together with one voice as an industry, but also together with other industries, because there's requirements, as was mentioned, for lighting now, for ventilation, for different aspects of building technologies. So what we're doing more and more at the European level as well is, and what this really fair is doing here as well, it tackles all technical building systems, and it's important to come together in forums like this and understand how we address these issues together, because the regulations can be overwhelming. So I think we as an industry have a responsibility to make it simpler for building owners, investors, and others as well. As I said, I hope that this can be sort of an involved discussion. So at any point, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, or if you want to just make a statement or whatever, feel free to intervene, and we'll be happy to pick up. Go ahead. There we go.
Let's start giving something that works. Hey, my name is Amde Kirkegaard. I'm a Dane, working for Leutech in Austria. We are building brains. That's what we do. Just to follow up on what you said, Mr. Doctor and triple doctor and 7 triple doctor. So, when I go out on the building area and there are doctors who are making a lot of papers, they are the enemy. They are from Brussels. They take up their time and they're killing their business. This is where you need to put yourself before you go there. They don't want to listen to you guys. You're wasting their time. Number 2, what you said, follow the money. It's so difficult for these guys who are a part of a tender, who have a tender, who have a tender, who have a tender. No one is in control of the brain of the building. So at the end of the day, when we're especially doing new buildings, all the numbers, all the lead requirements and the certification we all put on the building, I have asked everyone in the whole globe, I'm a global marketing director, by the way, can you show me one of these buildings that's net zero, that's new built, with all the labels and all the certificate? It's not there. When you go actually in a month later and ask for these things, and ask for the numbers, it's not working. So the biggest thing I see is almost that simple. We need to educate people in school, take them from their crypt and educate people who can do this. In the building industry, it's like incredible that we can build more than 2 stories because we are still using the same method as we did 20, 25 years ago. All the paperwork is done, all the methods are done, it's not implemented. The only reason why I see this working was in Finland, because they have a demand that you're not allowed to put a human being into that building before the human being will survive. The rest of the world, we're looking at the energy. But if we put it that way and say you are not allowed to put anyone into that building, if we cannot say that the temperature is right, humidity, flow, blah, 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 and that's why we start to say human first, and if it works for the human and they feel good, then we save energy. But there is a very big gap. We need to educate, and we need to be able to talk to these people on the ground level, so we are not the enemy. I'm also the enemy. I also have too many of these paperworks. But thanks.
Thank you for that intervention. Absolutely agreed. And I think that's why we are here trying to talk to the industry to tell you that we need to be better at communicating these things. But something that you addressed as well is the human first. And I think that's what the Commission is trying to do a little bit through this latest revision. We're not talking only about energy efficiency anymore. We are bringing in indoor environmental quality, which is important, thermal comfort, the presence of contaminants, CO2, etc. And that's sort of what the regulations are doing now, and we as an industry now also need to adapt our communication in that relation as well. And in terms of education, we are also talking to the other industries, and that's really, I think, at Brussels, a recognition now that there's so many different ways that people do even energy performance assessments. There's every inspector has their own thing, and that's why we're getting involved now in projects to try to harmonize this across the EU to come up with kind of based on standards a single solution that integrates all of the different technical building systems and in one place gives the inspectors on the ground a tool and education, something that they can use in order to apply to the building stock. Go ahead,
and there's another learning point that comes with EPBD 2024, and that's about the commissioning, because we were always having the problem that the commissioning was just one day, and afterwards people were complaining the building doesn't work, temperature's not right, the bad air and everything. And now the commissioning phase is defined as at least one cooling period, one heating period, and that's something really positive. We should have two cooling periods too, but that's already a big step forward, because it brings people in the position to make buildings work out, because buildings are more complex than people think.
If I may, you mentioned that 25 years ago, I was actually scared myself when you say, and it's something I say myself, over 30 years experience, I have an age. And what I see is that we have progressed and evolved in understanding buildings, but we still have this old-fashioned view of separate agents. I represent HVAC manufacturers. Still within our association, there is thermal comfort, ventilation, air quality, regulation and control. We need to come together. So the building is one. It's alive. And the same as I myself or you are different every day, even in the morning and in the night. I can become grumpy, I can become happy. Buildings are likewise. So as far as we do not understand the building as a whole, and we keep on saying, well, this is my HVAC installation, this is my lighting installation, this will not work. And this is why I think the EPBD is a tremendous opportunity or cost of opportunity if we don't use the framework to use it as a whole. And it is critically important in terms of training when, for some of those small technical installations in buildings, we are still using thousands and thousands of small companies, micro SMEs. Those people do not have the culture of understanding that their work is going to be hybridated, combined, integrated in a system with one single brains. So training of the very small ones is also critical here. So.
Very important comment. Very important comment.
No,
oh, thank you. So, if it was that easy with all of the small, medium enterprises, I work with the biggest consultants company around the globe. We have a proud company called Ramble. They're really skilled. But when you look at their paper and the tender material, they are just as... They have read all the papers, and they're using all the stars and all the banners, you two guys. But when we ask, can we control one of your pumps with a standard open protocol? Yeah, if you pay €1,000 for the interface. So it's not just the small ones. If this is going to be a big game, we also have to yell at the big ones. You need to educate, and you need to open your protocols.
Good point.
Right. I think it was was shown that both at the commissioning phase and also later in the stage, we can't always show that the products actually are working. So I think that brings us very well to the inspections that are now also enhanced through the new EPBD. So under Article 23, there's a new key mechanism on how do we ensure that the inspections are not just a box-ticking mechanism, that we actually show that the performance that was there at the design phase actually exists and those technologies are working. So Bruno, if you perhaps want to take that up, and how do we ensure that we are not just ticking boxes but actually ensuring performance?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I want to be a bit more specific just to give an example of how this directive could help us, and also to your point, it's all good, it's all, you know, certificates, paperwork. In the end, it must serve the user, and the user must see the benefit, right? So one of the new elements that the directive is bringing in on inspections is that the person doing the maintenance should also look at the hydronic circuit and how to optimize that, which is new. And has to do that considering average or typical working conditions. And I think this could really hugely benefit the end user ultimately, but in general, improve the energy performance of the building. Why? Well, we have many buildings that have been balanced. Multifamily buildings, for example, have been balanced statically. The commissioning is done, the building is balanced, great, it works. Then over time, there has been a huge penetration of technologies to control temperature. We have thermostat, thermostatic valves and so on, radiator valves. In Southern Europe, where I come from, this is still ongoing, so it's it's not yet done, and national EU legislation is pushing it. So we are transforming our hydronic circuit into variable flow hydronic circuits. There is a variation in demand, and this perfectly balanced building loses its balance. So the end user is saying, I invested in all these technologies, I don't have comfort, and I don't see the savings. And that's where the maintenance person can come in and say, to optimize your hydronic circuit, you need dynamic balancing, for example, given your rated power, given your the working of your building. And this is a very concrete step, and to do that we need to make maintenance installers aware of this requirement, but also aware of the technology behind, so they give the right piece of advice. And just a very quick thing that I wanted to add, also hydronic balancing is mentioned not only on inspections, Article 23, but also on technical building systems.
Right behind you now, as if we have staged this before. Indeed, the new requirement coming from the Commission refers to hydronic balancing. I think that's where you come in and say, actually, we need to talk a little bit more about automatic hydronic balancing, because it's not enough when we balance the system, when we replace the heat cold generator, and when we build the building, we need it to be balanced for these technologies to work continuously.
And what we see as an industry is that this is still not well understood, definitely not by people living in the buildings, but even by installers, and this is an opportunity to get back to there. And there is also a strong link to heat pumps, which maybe I can comment on later, why this can also help the optimization of heat pumps.
Indeed. As I said, if anybody has anything to add, as you've seen, we're very happy to bring in your questions or comments from the audience. But perhaps then, if we look on the ground, all these requirements, of course, first were set at the European level, but if we look at the national implementation across the EU, we luckily have 3 people here from 3 different countries, big member states, Spain, Italy, Germany as well. You also have knowledge of the broader markets of the other countries. Perhaps, Marta, if you can speak a little bit about what is Spain doing and how it's working out there.
Well, first of all, I go back to your early words about industry collaboration. So one of the things we are doing is coming here and talk to eu.bac and leverage the work you do here, like the checklist, and put them in Spain, in Spanish, etc. And I think we are also, one of the good practices is try to bring the benefits of regulation and control and automation control systems for buildings into the incentives programs. We have white certificates, I think they are called. So it is incentives, not subsidies, which are based on future savings. So we try to standardize some of these works, and there are others which cannot be standardized because it is for singular projects, etc. And I would like to bring up also something else we are doing in Spain as a best practice. From the association, from AFEC, we have developed a number of initiatives through a working group which integrates not only the manufacturers members, but also engineering association, installers, associations, specification managers from outside, etc. It has been a very interesting working group. From this group is where it came the fact that we cannot focus only on regulation and control of the HVAC systems, because they will need to talk to the photovoltaic system, to the shading in the facades, to the lighting, to the access control, to the elevators, to absolutely everything. And I have to say that the engineers, who are sometimes a little bit a different kind of humans, I would say, have brought a lot of light into this to us. So some of these practices are, okay, let's identify some gaps. Gaps in communication, gaps in training, gaps in understanding the current regulations. As an example, new EPBD has like 13 different points where regulation and control is mentioned. So we compared it to the current legislation in Spain. There are 6 points which are already in place. A little adjustment needed, but so message to everybody, EPBD is not new. We have it already. We just need to make it better and more extended. Or we need to get to the owners, to the property owners. How do we get there? Through the facility managers, but they speak different language. Infographic, technical document. So this is the kind of things we are doing also to create awareness in general public and technicians at the level of public administrations. I could extend myself from the working group because I'm so proud about it, but I think a highlight is enough. So.
Sure. Perhaps, Peter, you have experience with the national implementation here in Germany. What do you see is happening, and what can be done more?
Well, at the moment we are in an intermediate phase. You know, our last government is still working today, but it's not for a very long time in place, and we're waiting for the next government to be in place, and to I think they will. Well, they never do what they promised to do before the elections, right? But
there seems to be a lot of money going around now.
They promised to look at the building energy efficiency regulation, and they promised to do at least some changes there. And now they're talking about a lot of money, but it's not really existing money. It's debt, and you know what debt is? It's just hot air. The people need to work for it, and not today, but in future. And so maybe it gives a stimulus, and the discussion is also about some climate-related investments to be done with that money. But we don't know what will be the outcome of today's discussion on that budget. And but talking to the ministry, to the big people, to the policy officers in place in the ministry, they already actively follow up with EPBD 2024. They have already the things in the drawer, so they can get it out, and they are not yet on a level where they look into the details, but there are some studies that will be made. 3 studies are on the way that will be finished maybe by the end of the year or beginning of next year, and then maybe they will not be ready by May 2026, but maybe by 2027. So last time, you know, the implementation period in Germany was extra long. That took some extra time, so they took from 2018 to 2024. We really hope that we can put some more energy in and be quicker this time and be ready by 2026 or at least 2027 with a better implementation. And I think what's coming up in the new EPBD is something that's really positive, also positive for the market and positive for the environment, for the energy efficiency, for decarbonization of the building stock.
Indeed, and since there is that debt break cancellation on the table that might come or might not, as you mentioned, it's sort of not real money, but I guess if there is a fund dedicated to investment in improving energy efficiency, it's not, you know, spent for nothing. It's actually an investment perhaps in the future that can bring back that money. If we then look, perhaps Bruno, you have knowledge of Italian markets, French markets, or what they're doing there in terms of implementation and some of the things that we might learn from there as well.
Yeah. Well, the point I want to make is about the having an integrated approach, and I'm not sure that's the strongest point in Italy where I'm from, but I will not comment further. But I think I see it. I see at least attempts at doing that in Spain, where I live, but also in France. And we absolutely need. I think it was said already by someone, to look at our not only technical building systems, but also the impact of one on the other, but also on the overall functioning of the building. Also, in the transposition phase, we have the opportunity to maybe address some of these gaps that are existing. And this is not a theoretical concern or discussion. It's really about actually realizing the potential savings that we factor in when we say we need to go through this renovation of the building stock. It will cost that. The return investment will be over X amount of years because these are the savings. If we do things properly, yes. If we don't, we will miss it, and that will slow down immensely the renovation speed and also maybe cause a backlash, which should be a concern for us in the industry. One example, huge deployment of heat pumps. They are being also supported through public funding. We believe, of course, it's a good thing for electrifying, decarbonizing, and so on. However, we should absolutely avoid that, you know, for example, installer is replacing a gas boiler, even a condensing gas boiler, putting in heat pumps without checking whether the system conditions are there for that heat pump to be performing as by specs, right? And that heat pump will need to work with a much lower supply temperature. How do we get there? It depends on the insulation, it depends on the surface of radiators, but critically it depends also on whether the hydronic system, if we consider radiators, is balanced or not. Because a non-balanced system is pushed to the maximum to try to give heat, for example, to the emitters that are the furthest away from the heat generator. So building managers are pushing the system to the limit to give comfort to users. You replace that with a heat pump, and your heat pump will not achieve by far the COP, coefficient of performance, that was promised. So we need to get back, check the system, improve the hydronic balancing if needed, and then we will realize the savings with the heat generator. So this kind of cross-technology thinking is needed, and maybe in the transposition phase we could have some requirements through inspections, through installation and so on, or commissioning, where we check that.
And I think Spain is doing something in that regard as well, right? In as the national authority in terms of ensuring that this is done.
Yeah, at least from, again, I keep talking about this, but at least in Spain we have very good legislation on hydronic balancing. It's one of the very few cases I know of where dynamic hydronic balancing is mandatory above 70 kilowatts for new build, but also for the renovation of buildings. So that means that at least the buildings will, on that side, will be ready for receiving heat pumps, and then there are other constraints that we have to check. So that is definitely an example that should be looked at by other member states.
Right. Marta, you wanted to come in with?
Yeah, I was. Well, thank you for bringing the point on heat pumps. Indeed, you can have the best heat pump in the world, but heat pumps are as efficient only as the system they are integrated into. So if the system is not efficient, it doesn't matter your A+++++, it will not be efficient. And indeed, a dynamic balance, well, we can turn the thing around again. What are the consequences of not having the right dynamic balancing? So an imbalanced system will not only have higher temperatures, and indeed heat pumps are more efficient and have a higher COP. The smaller, so when the temperature is lower and the delta T is lower, and that helps with regulation. So you avoid peaks of heat, peaks of cold, which is redundant in comfort, and the cycling is smaller, so you soften the strain of compressors and other components, so durability of the equipment is better, and it also has to do a lot with maintenance of the dynamic balancing, and it is not only that it is also in the regulation, it's especially important in larger buildings, so multifamily houses, office buildings, etc. And I think a very good model that we are seeing more and more in Spain, but it is also in the UK, and I'm sure it is also in Germany, is the ESCOs, the energy services companies. So they do provide this. Well, what they provide is a renovation, potentially replacing a boiler with a heat pump and many other things, of course. It is not an independent thing, remember. And what they commit to is a fixed electricity price. And that comes only from proper balancing and proper regulation. So it is really up to the regulation and the balancing to make sure they do not lose money. Otherwise, the ESCO company, the energy service company, will need to pay because they have committed to a fixed rate. And I think that is a very good example on how renovation can be pushed.
Right. Let's perhaps shift gears a little bit. I think that was a good discussion on kind of national approaches and solutions. But now when we look back at the EU and what it's doing, it was mentioned before already that there's something called the Smart Readiness Indicator that's coming. Perhaps I wanted to just ask those of you who are left with us, if any of you have heard of the Smart Readiness Indicator before today, if just a show of hands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Okay, yeah, some in the audience. So the question is, how do we fix this, right? Again, a new incentive or initiative from the EU. How we as an industry talk about this, and what do we do this, and how do we make people see this as an opportunity? So that's sort of my question, open to all of you, whoever wants to start. How does SRI fit into this equation that we've been discussing, and can it help drive the demand of the solutions that are on display here today?
Maybe I have a quick comment. So on the SRI, so the SRI is a tool, and indeed the aim should not only be to rate the smartness of a building, but to show a path, right, for future upgrade, or to give guidance to the building owner to decide on a certain technology, knowing that that technology may prevent or enable future upgrades. So really to think a bit into the future as well. I think ideally it should also help raising the evaluation of that building. So of course there are a number of studies telling us the higher the energy class, the more value the building has, and that starts to be also reflected into the cost of loans that the banking system is giving to people buying those houses. So there is a sort of virtuous circle. If you invest in a performance house, you will have a lower interest and so on. However, for these effects to take place, we need to build it correctly, right? And some feedback which I hear is in the testing phase as we are now, is that also buildings are relatively smart, risk faring pretty badly on the SRI rating, right? And I think that would be a mistake, at least as an industry. That's the position we have, because we should not disincentive, right? So we have a building which is fairly modernized, digital, and smart, and it has a low rating. That maybe that will bring down the valuation of the building. So I think let's not lose sight of the objective of having this, which is not rating for rating's sake. It's to accelerate the deployment and to have to give information to users. So let's be careful there not to be maybe over ambitious with the classes and make a mistake in that sense.
Indeed, and I think that's why it's excellent that we're having this testing phase now, so we can iron out these issues. And I think indeed the low scores that we are getting from some of the relatively smart buildings is because, of course, there's always potential for more smartness, and 100% rating would reflect that. But I think indeed, if we see a 50% rating on a building that's really smart and doing all the things that we want already, we don't want to create this impression that it's only half smart and it has so far to go. So perhaps it can be considered to adapt the rating a little bit, at least the branding of it. We have for EPCs as well A classes, A++ classes in the future. So also for energy labeling for products. So perhaps something similar could be investigated here with the smart readiness. But beyond that, I think, as we discussed, it's a lot of requirements, a lot of labels, a lot of certificates. But I think for us as an industry and all the industries together, it's important to simplify this and integrate, because nobody wants to comply with everything. And we see a lot of opportunities for overlap. So when an inspector comes into a building and inspects your energy performance, when they inspect your compliance with the building automation control system requirements, including indoor environmental quality monitoring, for example, they should be also available to inspect your smartness. And it should be an integrated approach. We should educate, as was said before, the people who are doing installing inspections of these systems together on all these elements, so they're able to simplify as much as possible for the investor, for the building owner to get these certificates. So, Marta?
Regarding SRI, you say that we should not be over-ambitious, etc., but let's not forget that maybe 65–70% of the buildings we have now were built in the 60s, in the 70s. Nobody thought of a smart readiness. Nobody thought of electrical vehicles, not even telephones or chargers. So it is. I understand it is very normal that the first tests on SRI give very low rating, but that is normal. So as far as I understand, SRI focused on 3 areas, which is energy use and operation, the response to our needs of comfort, and the grid flexibility. So this test phase that we are, it's a live project funded by the EU, SRI to market. In Spain, for example, the target is to test and monitor 50 buildings. And it started, I think, November 2022, and it finishes in October this year. And the results so far show an average rating of 20%. But with very little, it could come up to 40-something%. And the learnings so far are that the buildings are relatively good. Again, understanding those buildings were built over 3 decades ago, 4 and 5. The first 2 areas, let's say the energy use and the comfort, the response to our needs, provide relatively good rating. The grid flexibility is very, very low rating. So there is a lot to do there. So, and another, concern, I would say, another concern I share is that the EPBD provides the authority to the member states to adjust the catalog of services and the ratings. In the test phase, as far as I know, Spain has sticked to the default catalog and default values, but France has adjusted it. You may want to adjust because you want to focus on the special renovation of buildings, on more climate zones, because there is only 5 by default. The good thing is that it will be better adjusted to the country, but then you completely lose comparison and traceability. So I'm very happy with the SRI. I was going to say I'm a little bit skeptical, but I don't want to be skeptical. I doubt that it is going to be a real reference unless we make sure we really take the learnings from all this test phase and agree on a harmonized and simplified approach.
I have to answer that one.
Sorry, if I'm...
Hello. I'm allowed to be skeptical. SRI is going to be a pain in the butt. This is selling rubber band per the meter. And the same thing that happened with a lot of the other things. The second we do this, France can do this, Spain can do this, this is killing everything. So Danfoss, Grundfos, us, we have to reflect on different things for each nation, for each country. They're doing that to protect their market, not because they have special interest. I've been in all of these cases.
I'm a little bit optimistic.
Yeah, don't be. They're protecting their market. It's all okay. They're all doing that. But if we're going to do this from an EU side, we have to go back and say, don't waste our time. If we're going to do that, it have to be damn simple. It have to be the same parameters. And everybody remember HD-ready TV. No one can make a system, and we know how complex these systems are. Say, if you invest in this, then you can upgrade 5 years later to HD. And everyone knows if there's no one new getting into a building, you replace your brain. Because to build on it or recode it when it's done 5 years ago, yeah. So there are some things, if this is going to fly, and again, I always try to make sense. If I can explain this to one of the guys sitting in these caravans outside a building spot, the concrete guy, if I cannot explain it to him why we're doing that, then I have to go back again. And we have to remember that. If we cannot explain why we're doing that, this is a complex system. This is not a refrigerator or a TV where we can put a label on. This is really complex stuff. So when we are trying to do complex stuff, simple, and it's not working with the concrete worker, then we have to stop it instead of saying, you have to, because you don't understand, that's because you're stupid. No, that's because we are.
Indeed, but again, I think that's why it's good that we've been testing this since 2018. Many member states are trying it out, learning from their experiences. This is not mandatory yet. The Commission will also come out with a report sort of summarizing how the people have perceived this, how they have tested this at the different member states, and also perhaps in their, when they adopt the additional act, they will also come up with some suggestions as well and guidelines in terms of how member states should go about this. But again, as I completely agree with you, we need to simplify this while maintaining the harmonization across the member states. As you said, many member states have the flexibility to adjust it a little bit, but the score needs to remain comparable between the member states, even between the different buildings, because as we've seen with energy performance certificates, there's so much variation in the market that they become almost useless. So beyond providing the suggestions on how to improve the energy performance, or in this case, smartness of the building, they need to be comparable. So there's actually an investment opportunity that people can see through the SRI. But I think another aspect that ties into smartness and intelligence, as you like to say, and a term that has been floating around a lot, I think, in the last years, is artificial intelligence. So I think that the AI-driven BACS future is no longer a future. It's already happening here. So perhaps, Marta, if you'd like to expand on that, how can AI make the building smarter, and what is your experience, what you're seeing?
Well, I'm probably not the most experienced, but I shared a couple of days ago with Gusts that I attended the AHRI show in the States. And an old colleague of mine called it, and sorry if there is any American, North American, sorry, here in the lounge, they call it the HVAC museum, because they are really going 6-8 years behind Europe. But in terms of controls and regulation, they are pretty much our way, what I saw, at least this edition. And I saw a company whose name I cannot recall anymore, I'm sorry, which provided the idea of one step beyond and making the building autonomous. This is something you mentioned in your presentation. So it is not only data gathering, testing, measuring, monitoring. You have data. With the data, you have to convert it to information. Information is something that we users read in our screens or phones. But this, and it was a startup, sorry, so it is not a total company yet, but very nice examples, at least what I saw. What you're intending as the building as a whole, because it's an entity, a complete entity, the building as a whole is autonomous in decisions for the building management. So that is where IA would go, but we are also thinking of, and again, I'm not an expert in the field, I'm just echoing things I hear, and I'm fascinated by them. You may come to me and say, Marta, you're totally wrong. You're too optimistic again. But things like digital twins, not only for predictive maintenance and repairs, but also for training. Can you imagine what AI can do in training for small companies who cannot really go to a different location, and you cannot afford to have those setups for training? There's a lot that AI can do, but again, AI is only intelligent if we provide the intelligence and apply it to a whole building. Otherwise, it will be silos again of smart devices.
Training, but I think also compliance. I think that's sort of also something I've been thinking these days, is that, again, there's so many provisions, so many regulations, so many deadlines and targets that we need to meet. Perhaps in terms of understanding of compliance, you know, if you had like an EPBD focused AI or national AIs focused on buildings and all the regulations and all the things you can do to improve your energy performance, if there was such a centralized system that sort of addresses all of these questions that so many of you have, I think it would be also something in that direction related to training that that would be useful to have. But of course, at a building level, again, going back, there's many things that it can help with in terms of predictive maintenance, in terms of, you know, alerting you when you need to address a technical building system even before it fails, and demand response, reducing the peak, cutting the peak consumption. I don't know if any of my other colleagues have any thoughts, experiences, what you've experienced in the industry so far on AI.
Shall I? I have just well, one example. I think, not being an expert on AI at all, but the artificial intelligence to our industry can or could potentially improve the interaction with end users and their experience. And I give an example. We have software that we use to control substations, so substations to connect a building to district energy. And this software is collecting data on, you know, energy consumption in the building, the weather forecast, and so on, and then is basically preheating the building to avoid to reduce peak load. Okay, so the building is preheated before people wake up and turn on the shower and so on, and so, you know, that ensures that we work with a lower load and we save energy and so on. But the AI to this, so this is the software we have. The AI to this, for me, could be to understand that the preferences of people could vary a bit compared to what the model that has been built into the software says. And so an intelligence device should also be able to give people what they want within certain parameters to achieve certain goals in terms of energy efficiency and so on. And I had some discussion with colleagues yesterday about this. So I think we can do much more. So we automated. We can be also smart in automation with a better interaction with our users.
Indeed. Peter, anything to add on AI?
When it comes to AI, I think we're now on a good way to get all the data we need, because AI only works with tons of data. We need a lot of data all over the years, how this building perform, how does the room perform, and we need all this data to make it AI ready, right? And I think with the new EPBD now we have the chance, or we have the obligation to gather all the data, all energy related data must be stored, must be must be in a database, must be analyzed, and how to analyze it. It's algorithms, it's AI, and the question is also how do we use AI? Do we use embedded AI or do we use cloud-based AI? Because we all know that the cloud-based AI process causes multiple times the energy consumption of an embedded AI. So how to use it? Do we use it in a sensor that it's embedded already? Then we cannot easily update it. Or do we use it via a cloud where we use a lot of energy, and we all know that all this new cloud services and AI services. I mean, in the US, they're building nuclear power plants to make AI possible, and this is something that's really a challenge when it comes to the energy use, and we have to find the right balance. How to use technology, how to use AI in future, how to use algorithms in future, and not do it just because it's there.
Right. Indeed, so I think we've covered a wealth of topics, and as we sort of try to start to close up, I just wanted to invite again if anybody has any last questions on any of the EPBD related or smart technology or smart readiness or inspection questions that we discussed, or any takeaways you'd like the panel or the industry to take away in general, like one thing that you'd like to message to us, or perhaps the Commission, Representative Sylvia, who's still here with us as well. If there's one takeaway, now's the moment. If not, if there's nothing else to add.
Yes.
If there's nothing else to add, I'll maybe ask then the panelists, like a wrap-up, if there was one major change that you would like everybody to take away from today, either on a policy level or a market level, to accelerate the deployment of these solutions and all the benefits that they could bring, what would that be? Marta, perhaps, if...
Well, number one in my wish list is maybe going... looking at the public administration, just lead by example. So the EPBD, I'm just trying to think of a simple way to start moving. EPBD requests to act on the 16% worst efficient buildings, but for that we need to find out which ones they are. And we don't have proper information, I believe. We may think of which ones they are, but we don't know it. So just to select the 16% lowest, we do need to do some work. If we start renovating and implementing EPBD and BACS systems in public buildings, we can go much faster, and you will lead by example. There are some good examples already. Just let's extend them. So. Because you have the public administration, the governments do have the decision. The other way around, we have to go find out the 16 lower number of buildings and go and convince the owners. And that is a big deal and a lot of time. So just ask us, the industry, to help you lead by example. And another wish, which is collateral to that, is inspections are key, but for that, also the public administrations need to have the resources. And what I find many times, in Spain at least, is that the inspections is responsibility from the regional governments, who typically have a new responsibility but not additional resources. So it has to be balanced. So. Lead by example, public buildings, and provide resources for more resources for inspections.
Right, Bruno.
For me, well, the wish is that this opportunity that we have with the transposition doesn't turn into a shuffling around paperwork and seeing this as ticking a number of boxes and being compliant on paper, because we heard it from the gentleman here, and I think we all agree there will be misunderstanding and pushback, right, from the ground. So let's transpose legislation smartly, I think we have to have an integrated approach. We have to think why we are doing it and what are the benefits and the improvements on the life of people living in those buildings that we can unlock. And then, so this would be one, so not copy-paste whatever it's in the directive, but really think about it and how to have smart legislation. And not to say that the directive is bad, but it's written in such a way that leaves the room to member states to do more. And the second one would be also, I'd love to see more cooperation, public-private cooperation in terms of communication and training on all these issues and opportunities that we have, so that we bridge that gap that we mentioned a number of times on explaining people and also professionals why we are trying to push this through policies.
Right. And Peter, if you have one thing you'd like everybody to take away from today?
Yeah, I have two wishes.
Everybody does, it seems, so go ahead.
I have two wishes, and the first one, last week I had a conversation with someone, I don't know names, but with someone from the German ministry, and they told me they are now making a study to find out how many public buildings we have. And I was shocked. And I hope, first wish, I hope they find out how many public buildings they have. And I hope they make them energy efficient, at least those where they know they have it. And the second wish is, you know, building it always it's not only about the construction phase and about any commissioning date, it's about how to operate a building, and to operate a building it's more than just energy efficiency, and it's more than just having a good indoor environment. It's also about indoor mobility. It's about elevators, escalators. It's about the cleaning process to optimize that. You can do a lot of things when it comes to all these services in a building. Why do we clean all the rooms when people are in the home office? Why don't we know from a smart building that this room has not been used today, so we don't need to clean it? And all those things, that we have a smarter operation of the buildings. I think that's the essential point, that and where technology and also our building automation technology can help to provide information: who's there, whom can I bring a breakfast service, and to whom, where do I need to clean an office, which meeting room has been in use, which meeting room has not been in use. So this is modern information that we need to provide to make buildings really smarter and to use them in a smarter way. Mm-hmm. And I hope we do that in future more often, and we see that technology taking over this supporting role more often.
Right, thank you, Peter. So to sum up, I think what our panel is trying to say, one...
Excuse me, Gusts.
Sorry, Marta, go ahead.
What's your wish?
What's my wish? I wanted to sum up with that.
Okay.
So, to combine all of your wishes. So public sector leading by example, absolutely. As Peter also mentioned, we are lacking sometimes in the public sector understanding themselves what do they have, so they need to step up. Inspections are important to ensure that we continue to operate the building as we designed it. Integrated approach in everything we do, so the different industries represented in this fair today, but also integrated approach to how we ensure compliance, as I mentioned. We need to work together. Data, as was brought up by Peter, we're often missing data on what the building stacks actually are, not only in the public sector, but also generally what sort of buildings we have and what needs to be done in terms of investment to address that. And of course, operational efficiency is something that we sometimes overlook. What many of these solutions can provide is not just energy efficiency, but it's also improving business and other operational efficiency through smartness and the different aspects like AI and smart readiness indicator that we've discussed today. But my wish, I think going forward, if we combine all of these, is that we talk more with each other among the companies, and I think that's why eu.bac is here, and that's why we want you to come up to our stand also throughout the week to discuss further some of these topics, but also talk, as was mentioned, to the other industries and talk to the people on the ground actually doing this work so they understand what is it why we're doing, but always start with why are we doing this. So I think if we don't understand why, if we just talk about this is mandatory, you need to do this, this is good, we won't have the enthusiasm that I think many of us share for these technologies. So let's start with why, let's work together, and thank you again for the whole panel, and thank you for those who stayed with us, and everybody watching later at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.